Have you ever wondered how someone who claims to love you can hurt you so deeply? It's not accidental. It's not a slip of the tongue. They hurt you on purpose, deliberately, strategically. And that's exactly why you need to pay attention. In today's video, we're diving into 7 shocking reasons narcissists intentionally cause you pain. Not to apologize, not to change, but to control you, manipulate you, and keep you trapped in a toxic cycle where they are the center of your universe. From playing the victim to turning into the hero who saves you from pain they created, every move is calculated. They might even convince you you're the problem, while you're the one suffering silently. If you've ever felt like you're going crazy, constantly second-guessing yourself, or emotionally drained from loving someone too hard, this video is for you. We're breaking down the emotional warfare, exposing the manipulation, and reminding you of one simple truth. You are not weak, you're being manipulated, and you deserve freedom. Watch all the way to the end to learn how to recognize these tactics and protect yourself from narcissistic abuse. And if this content hits home, hit that subscribe button. Don't miss out on future videos that shine light on emotional manipulation and the path to healing. Thank you for being here, and remember. Reason 1. Justifying their betrayal or abandonment. The manipulation of the victim narrative. One of the most insidious and psychologically damaging reasons why a narcissist may deliberately hurt you is to construct a justifiable excuse for eventually abandoning or betraying you. This is not an impulsive reaction in the heat of an argument, it's often a calculated emotional strategy. From a psychological perspective, this behavior is rooted in a deeply ingrained defense mechanism in narcissistic personality structures, the inability to accept personal accountability. Narcissists typically cannot tolerate feelings of guilt, shame, or internal blame. So, in order to rationalize unethical behavior such as cheating, emotional neglect, or cold withdrawal, they need to build a narrative in which they are not the perpetrator, but the victim. And that's exactly where the pattern of intentional harm begins. Instead of openly expressing their discontent or honestly addressing emotional needs, the narcissist will begin a slow erosion of your self-worth. It starts with subtle criticisms, withdrawal of affection, backhanded compliments, and manufactured tension. The goal is not to resolve issues, but to provoke a reaction to push you into emotional outbursts, confusion, or withdrawal. Then, once you react, they'll use your response as proof that you are the problem. Suddenly, you're too controlling, too sensitive, or emotionally unstable. And now they have the justification they've been looking for to leave or to cheat. Worse still, they might retell this story to others, friends, family, or even publicly painting themselves as someone who tried everything while silently suffering under your supposed toxicity. This is the beginning of a classic role reversal tactic. The one who causes harm repositions themselves as the harmed. In clinical settings, this is commonly referred to as victim playing, a manipulation tactic that allows the narcissist to escape accountability while preserving their moral image. This need to be blameless isn't just about public perception, it's about protecting the fragile inner ego of the narcissist. If they can make you look like the villain, they don't have to face the discomfort of being the one at fault. And so they shift blame in a calculated way, allowing them to exit the relationship with minimal guilt, and often with external validation. What makes this dynamic even more damaging is how it erodes your sense of reality. You may begin to internalize their narrative and question your own behavior. You wonder, was I too demanding? Did I push them away? Am I the one to blame for the breakup? And when you're in pain, maybe even begging them not to leave, in their mind, they've already won. Because now you've been pushed so far that you've started to believe their version of the truth. You've lost confidence, you've lost clarity, and most importantly, you've lost the ability to clearly identify who's really responsible for the emotional damage. Even more destructively, narcissists may launch a smear campaign, twisting your reactions into stories of emotional abuse, painting you as the aggressor. I had to leave. They'll say you don't know what they put me through. And just like that, their betrayal becomes an act of self-preservation. They get to hurt you and still walk away as the one who was wrong. Reason 2. Playing the hero who heals the wound they created. Have you ever found yourself in pain because of someone, only to run back to that same person for comfort? It's not a coincidence, and it's definitely not love. It's one of the most manipulative tactics narcissists use. They hurt you, then come back to heal you. It sounds insane, but it's real, and it's common. They may break you down with cold words, silent treatment, or explosive arguments they ignite out of nowhere. Then, when you're exhausted and emotionally drained, they suddenly soften. They offer a hug, a half-hearted apology, or a passionate night to make things right. And you start to think, Maybe they still love me. No one else understands me like they do. Even if they hurt me, they're still here. But here's the truth. They are the one who caused the pain in the first place. They created the storm and now they want credit for pulling you out of the rain. This tactic builds something incredibly dangerous, a trauma bond. The more pain, the more soothing, the deeper the attachment. You start to lose the ability to tell the difference between love and emotional manipulation. You don't know if you're loving them or just surviving a crisis over and over again. And the narcissist. They know exactly what they're doing. They feel powerful when they see you hurt. But they feel even more powerful when you beg the person who broke you for healing. They make you believe. No one else can make me feel better. And soon you become dependent emotionally, mentally, and even in your sense of self-worth. Maybe they once said, "You're the only one who gets me." And now, every time they hurt you, you tell yourself, only they can fix this. But the truth is simple. The person who heals you should not be the one who wounded you. Love shouldn't be a cycle of breaking you down just to save you from the damage they caused. This isn't healthy attachment. It's dependence disguised as gratitude. And the longer it goes on, the harder it is to walk away. Because they're not always bad, right? Sometimes they're sweet. Sometimes they apologize. Sometimes they promise to change. But every time they make it right, you fall deeper into a relationship where you're repeatedly hurt and constantly forgiving the same person. So if you're stuck in this loop, pause. Ask yourself, am I really loved or am I being controlled? Is this real connection or a carefully crafted performance? Love isn't supposed to hurt you just so someone else can play the hero. Real love feels safe, not chaotic. It doesn't break you down just to build you up again. Reason 3. Role reversal, when the abuser plays the victim. In narcissistic relationships, one of the most common yet difficult to detect strategies is role reversal. The person causing harm casts themselves as the victim, while the actual victim is portrayed as the toxic one. From a psychological standpoint, this behavior reflects a core feature of narcissistic personality structures, the refusal to take responsibility and the need to protect the self-image from guilt or perceived failure. To do this, narcissists not only manipulate facts, but also reconstruct emotional narratives within the relationship in ways that serve their own agenda. This process often begins with provocation, emotional destabilization, and subtle manipulations such as silent treatment, avoidance, passive-aggressive comments, or personal devaluation. When you respond whether by raising your voice, withdrawing, or crying, that reaction is stripped of its original context and reframed as proof that you are the one who is volatile, unbalanced, or abusive. In therapeutic settings, this dynamic is recognized as a combination of gaslighting and victim playing. The narcissist aims to make you question your own reality, while simultaneously demanding that you adopt their distorted perspective. Over time, this reversal creates a moral gray area, in which the person who was genuinely harmed begins to ask themselves, am I actually the problem? Was my reaction too much? Am I the toxic one in their eyes? For individuals who are self-reflective, conflict avoidant, or have a history of low self-worth, this psychological trap is particularly dangerous. You may become increasingly dependent on the narcissist's interpretation of events, doubting your own emotions and perception of reality. Moreover, this role reversal serves a clear social function. The narcissist may share their revised version of events with friends, family, or even online, portraying themselves as someone who tried everything but was mistreated in return. This allows them to preserve their social image and, in many cases, justify infidelity or withdrawal without being seen as the one at fault. When you find yourself having to justify reasonable emotional responses or apologize for setting healthy boundaries, it's a clear indication that you're caught in a long-term emotional manipulation pattern. Reason 4. Controlling your emotions and behavior when loving someone means losing yourself. From a psychological perspective, narcissists often lack a stable sense of self. To feel superior, secure, or loved, they need to control others. And to achieve that, they slowly work to make you doubt yourself, take control of your emotions, and eventually shape your behavior and personal choices. They don't need to shout or give direct orders. Sometimes all it takes is a look, or silence. You say something they don't like, their eyes narrow, their tone shifts, and suddenly you learn something. Better not say that again. Control doesn't always come through harsh words. More often, it shows up as a vague, persistent anxiety they plant in you every single day. They make you feel guilty for wanting time for yourself. They make you second-guess, expressing what hurts you. They make you afraid of doing too much, saying too little, or simply disappointing them. And so, you begin to adjust. You stop living according to what you feel and start living to keep them happy, avoid conflict, make sure they don't leave. Sound familiar? In psychological terms, this is called covert control, a subtle form of manipulation where you don't even realize you're losing autonomy, because you're willingly giving it up day by day in the name of keeping the peace. The danger is you start to believe this is love. Love is understanding. Love is patience. Love is sacrifice, right? But in reality, you're slowly becoming a just enough version of yourself and no longer truly you. They might say things that sound reasonable. I just want you to be safe. I don't think your friends really care about you. If you loved me, you wouldn't need to go out anyway. But underneath it all, the message is clear. Your feelings, your choices, your world only matter if I approve. Love is not a quiet prison. If you have to ask for permission to be sad, to be angry, to rest, to simply be yourself, that's not love. That's control. That's manipulation. That's how they keep you around, not through connection, but through insecurity. If you find yourself shrinking a little more every day just to avoid conflict, then it might be time to pause and ask yourself, am I still me in this relationship? And if your answer is, I'm not sure anymore, then maybe what you need most right now is freedom. Reason 5. They feel satisfaction when you suffer, how your pain feeds their ego. It sounds harsh, even cruel, but it's true. Some narcissists actually feel pleasure when you're in pain. Your suffering, whether it's a tired silence, teary eyes, or a quiet breakdown, becomes a silent victory for them. To the narcissist, every emotional reaction you have is proof that I matter. I control how you feel. I have power in this relationship. From a psychological perspective, this behavior reflects sadistic traits within narcissism, a pattern where the individual not only lacks empathy, but also derives a sense of gratification from causing emotional distress. Your pain doesn't trigger guilt or self-reflection in them. It fuels them. It makes them feel more powerful, more in control, like they're the one shaping the emotional landscape of your life. The more they hurt you, the more they feel elevated above you, smarter, stronger, untouchable. That's why they'll deliberately provoke emotional reactions. Mention an ex just to spark your jealousy. Compare you to someone better to chip away at your self-worth. Go cold and distant when you need them the most just to watch you spiral. These aren't random actions. They're emotional tests meant to measure how deeply they can affect you. Some narcissists don't outright destroy you, but they can't tolerate seeing you too happy for too long. Your joy, peace, or self-confidence threatens them. So just when you feel stable again, they'll stir things up. A passive-aggressive comment, a sudden mood shift, a sharp reminder of a past mistake. Why? Because your happiness means freedom, and your freedom means they lose control. The terrifying part is how you start to normalize this cycle: hurt, comfort, hurt again. You might even mistake it for passion. We just have a complicated love. It's intense but real. But no, it's not love. It's emotional dependency, created through instability and control. You begin making excuses for their behavior. They act this way because they're hurting. They didn't mean to. They're just under pressure. But here's the truth. Some people aren't hurting, they just enjoy seeing others hurt. Not because they're broken, but because it makes them feel stronger. They don't need you to cry every day. They just need you to shrink a little, doubt yourself a little, stay silent a little longer, as long as you never feel strong enough to leave. As someone who's worked with many people trapped in toxic dynamics, I can tell you this with certainty. If someone repeatedly hurts you and watches you suffer like it's your burden to carry, they don't love you. They're using your pain to fill what's empty inside them. Real love doesn't make you feel small. It doesn't hurt you just to prove it can. Love lifts you up. Love makes you stronger, not smaller. Reason 6. They're jealous of you, and they want to pull you down. In narcissistic relationships, there's a common but rarely acknowledged pattern: quiet envy. It doesn't show up through open admissions like "I'm jealous of you," but instead emerges through subtle, confusing behaviors: sudden coldness, sarcastic comments, or inexplicable irritability whenever you're happy, confident, or achieving something good in your life. Psychologically, narcissists tend to have fragile egos. They may appear confident, charming, and in control, but beneath that exterior lies a deep sense of insecurity and a lack of inner worth. So when you grow, when others praise you, when you shine, it doesn't inspire them. Instead, it threatens them. It makes them feel like they're losing control, like they're no longer the center of your world. In their minds, your success is a signal that you might one day leave, outgrow them, or realize your value without needing their validation. This jealousy isn't born from admiration, but from a fear of losing power. When you're happy, they feel uneasy. When you're thriving, they feel eclipsed. And instead of supporting you, they subtly pull you down. Not through obvious sabotage, but through quiet undermining comments like, "That's what you're bragging about," or "You really think you're that good." Sometimes they'll even provoke conflict or emotionally wound you right in the middle of joyful moments on your birthday, during an important milestone, or after good news at work. These disruptions may seem random, but they often have a purpose to destabilize your emotions, dampen your confidence, and return you to a state where they feel in control. In therapy, this kind of behavior is referred to as toxic covert comparison. It's usually masked as honest feedback, concern, or even humor, but the real motive is to reassert dominance in the relationship to ensure you never rise above them emotionally, socially, or personally. Over time, you begin to shrink yourself. You hesitate to share your successes. You feel guilty for being too happy, too independent, too radiant. You start turning down opportunities, holding back dreams, or suppressing joy, all in the name of keeping the peace. And slowly, you lose touch with the most empowered parts of yourself, the parts that once dared to dream, to try, to take up space unapologetically. If you've noticed that every step forward you take is met with resistance, criticism, or emotional withdrawal, if you find yourself dimming your own light to protect someone else's comfort, then it's time to question whether you're in a relationship with someone who celebrates your growth or someone who quietly fears it. A partner who truly loves you is happy when you grow. They don't need to be the center of attention. They don't need you to stay small so they can feel big. They don't ask you to dim your light just to keep things comfortable. Because real love doesn't compete with your evolution, it walks beside you while you rise. Reason 7. They want you to doubt yourself, undermining your reality to maintain control. Manipulation doesn't always come in the form of yelling, insults, or overt cruelty. Sometimes the most dangerous kind is quiet, when you slowly begin to doubt your own thoughts, emotions, and perceptions. And that's exactly what happens when a narcissist uses one of their most powerful psychological tactics, gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of emotional manipulation where the abuser makes you question your memory, your feelings, and even your sanity. They don't attack you head-on. Instead, they plant subtle, repeated doubts that gradually erode your confidence in your own reality. At first, it might sound like harmless comments. "You're just being too sensitive. I never said that. You must be remembering wrong. Why are you making such a big deal out of nothing?" You don't question yourself right away, but over time, as these statements build up, you start to wonder, am I really too sensitive? Maybe I am overreacting. Am I becoming a burden? And it's at that moment, the moment you begin to doubt your own inner voice, that the narcissist gains control. Psychologically, this is one of the most damaging forms of manipulation, because once someone loses trust in their own emotions and instincts, they become dependent on external validation to know what's real and what's not. In a narcissistic relationship, the manipulator steps into the role of reality guide, defining what you should think, how you should feel, how you should react, and even who you should believe. The result is that you grow quieter, more careful, more lost, and eventually more dependent. Not financially, but cognitively, the kind of dependency where you don't feel safe making decisions or trusting yourself without their approval. This form of psychological control is subtle but deeply rooted. Over time, you might start believing you are the problem. You apologize even when you're not at fault. You stay silent even when you're hurting. You erase your boundaries because you're not sure if they're valid enough to stand on. And the narcissist? They know exactly what they're doing. They don't need to raise their voice, forbid you from doing things, or isolate you directly. All they have to do is make sure you no longer trust your own perception, and that's enough to keep you exactly where they want you. If you've ever felt crazy, overly emotional, or like you've completely lost your sense of clarity, pause and ask yourself, do my feelings deserve to be trusted? The answer is yes. Your feelings are real. Your intuition is trying to protect you. And if someone is working hard to make you question that, it's not because you're weak. It's because they're afraid of what might happen if you woke up to the truth. If you've ever asked yourself, why are they treating me this way? What did I do to deserve this pain? The truth may be hard to hear, but it's also the key to your freedom. You didn't do anything wrong. You simply loved deeply someone who didn't know how to love without causing harm. Narcissists don't hurt you because they love you too much. They hurt you because it helps them maintain control, protect their fragile ego, and keep you stuck in a cycle where you're always shrinking and they're always at the center. The pain you felt may not have been an accident. The self-doubt you carry might have been carefully planted. And every time you forgave, tried harder, or gave them another chance, it wasn't weakness. It was proof that you loved sincerely, even when it wasn't returned in the same way. Now is the time to see the full picture without the filter they forced over your eyes. You deserve a love that doesn't cost you your peace. You deserve a relationship where your feelings are heard, your boundaries are respected, and your identity is preserved. You don't need to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's brokenness. You only need the courage to walk away from the place that made you forget your worth. If you're in the middle of healing, keep going. If something inside you is starting to feel off, listen to that voice. Because leaving a narcissist isn't the end of a relationship, it's the beginning of coming home to yourself.